Look, the traditional rules of networking and audience building, they are completely fractured. As a brand ethnographer, I can tell you that the old ways just don't cut it anymore. So let's dive right into this high-level strategic masterclass. We are taking Austin Kleon's highly acclaimed framework from his book Show Your Work and re-engineering it specifically for the hyper-competitive Indian startup ecosystem. Consider this explainer your new operational blueprint. Here is exactly how we're going to systematically break down this architecture today. We'll start with the visibility paradigm shift, move into genius over lone genius, break down the daily output engine, and analyze the document versus create matrix. Then we'll cover architectural loyalty and dealing with vampires, and finally, wrap it all up with a concrete Indian startup playbook. Let's move rapidly into these macro shifts.
Right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the visibility paradigm shift, and dismantling the silent grinder myth. This is the very first mental upgrade you need to make. Growing up, so many of us in Indian society were deeply conditioned by this old Indian myth, the idea of the silent grinder. Just keep your head down, work quietly in your room, and eventually the world is going to magically recognize your brilliance. But let me be blunt, the digital reality is absolutely ruthless. In today's algorithmic era, if your work is locked on a local hard drive, hidden genius is strictly equivalent to non-existence. If you aren't visible, premier partners, investors, and top-tier clients literally cannot find you. Austin Kleon totally nails this when he talks about the amateur advantage. You have to entirely abandon this heavy pressure of needing to be the ultimate mahaguru or supreme expert before you're allowed to speak up. When you are a beginner, you possess a massively valuable, fresh perspective. You understand the exact friction points that other beginners are facing right now. Being a public learner, simply saying, hey, I'm figuring out this custom CRM build today, let's see what breaks, actually builds a much deeper, vastly more authentic connection with your target audience than sterile perfection ever could. Moving right along to Section 2, genius over lone genius and the power of connected intelligence. This concept is a total game changer because it completely redefines intellectual networking. We really need to stop romanticizing the genius model, that isolated individual locked in a room attempting to produce rare miracles all alone. That model is dead. Instead, you need to actively integrate yourself into a genius. A genius is a dynamic, high-value network of interconnected creative operators who are openly exchanging ideas and elevating the entire industry's standards together. Collective intelligence drives growth velocity far, far faster than isolated brilliance ever will. And to actually participate in this genius, you have to fundamentally rethink what you share. The mantra here is think process, not product. Think about it like a high-end restaurant. We're so used to only showcasing the polished final meal. But modern audiences, especially in tech and startup spaces, inherently trust the human effort and the raw narrative architecture behind the work. They want to see the gritty, raw kitchen. Show them your workflow processing pipelines, not just the sterile final app launch. So how do we actually do this day-to-day? Let's jump into Section 3, the daily output engine and frictionless global telemetry. This is exactly where we operationalize transparency without causing total burnout. It boils down to a dead simple 3-step engine. Step 1 is your standard 8 hours of deep, focused work, what we call prolific quality output. Step 2 is where the absolute magic happens. You dedicate just 15 minutes at the end of the day to extract a 1% raw snippet from that deep work. It could be a messy raw sketch, a failed layout, or a single line of code. Step 3 is publishing that as a daily dispatch. By executing this consistently, you create a compounding digital library. It stops being just noise and becomes absolute live proof of your competency. But I know what you're thinking. How do you do this without feeling like a fake internet celebrity? That brings us to Section 4, the document versus create matrix. Think of this as your anti-influencer framework. A lot of the anxiety around content creation comes from this false idea that you have to invent highly polished lifestyle material. You absolutely don't. You are simply opening a digital window into the gritty execution you are already doing. Real tactical inputs look like this. Hit screen record during a live data validation process, share a screenshot of a failed layout check, post your raw creative design scripts, or maybe open source a unique optimization tool you just built for yourself. It is completely frictionless capture of what is literally already happening on your desk. When you compare the two approaches side by side, the massive return on investment becomes undeniable. The old-school hidden worker operates in total secrecy. It's high friction, they hoard trade secrets, rely on scattered internal metrics, and just hope for a magical discovery.
The documentarian closer, on the other hand, operates with frictionless raw capture. By transparently sharing just 1% of their workflow and teaching blueprints openly, they build immediate market authority. Plus, they get real-world global telemetry straight from their target markets. It's just an infinitely superior way to operate a business today.
Now, building this kind of global personal brand requires enforcing strict boundaries. Let's cover Section 5, architectural loyalty and vampires, and protecting your growth velocity.
If you want to scale, you must fiercely protect your growth velocity. Enter the vampire test. Here's the strict system framework. If an interaction with a specific individual, whether that's online or offline, leaves you completely mentally exhausted and drained of energy, that node is a vampire, period. Garlic isn't going to work on them, but a block button absolutely will. They have to be ruthlessly and mercilessly decoupled from your focus circle, so you can reserve your energy for high-value operators. And part of building fierce architectural loyalty means entirely eradicating your scarcity mindset. So many traditional business operators are terrified that sharing a technical workflow is going to create competitors. It doesn't. Think about it. When a master chef publishes their exact recipe, people don't suddenly stop going to their restaurant. Their brand premium skyrockets because they've just established themselves as the absolute authority leader. Passing on your secrets doesn't create rivals. It establishes absolute category dominance. Of course, the reality is, once you push your work out onto the public floor, you will inevitably face baseless criticism. It happens. You must enforce these 3 strict rules to survive it. First, take a deep breath and emotionally decouple. Trolling is a reflection of their own internal frustration, not your actual work. Second, don't feed the trolls. Spend absolutely 0 seconds arguing with valueless nodes in a comment section. And third, keep moving. Maintain your focus on standard scoring metrics, sharpen your tools, and immediately shift your energy to your next prolific quality output. Finally, let's ground all this theory into real-world application. Section 6, the Indian Startup Playbook, focusing on specific B2B and B2C execution tactics. Here is exactly how you integrate this transparency infrastructure into your agency or startup starting today. For your internal teams, deploy a daily Slack dispatch channel where every specialist logs just one unique logic update or technical fix they made that day. For B2B trust, stop using generic stock images immediately. Secure financial transparency by publishing clean, anonymized mockups of your 5% GST tax compliance ledgers on LinkedIn. Show clients exactly how meticulously you handle their data. And for B2C, build behind-the-scenes funnels. Show the intense dual verification engineering your team does to process files. By executing these specific tactics, you automatically multiply your conversion architecture by 3x. The data simply does not lie. Structural narratives and humanized journeys permanently fix leaks in your conversion funnels. People don't connect with dry facts or corporate dashboard updates. They remember stories. Tell the structural story of how your engineering team optimized database cells for 48 hours straight just to secure baseline compliance for a client. That raw, human narrative architecture, that is exactly how you build deep, unshakable consumer trust in a hyper-competitive market. So, stepping out of the dark room and opening up your digital dashboard, it is no longer optional. It is a mandatory upgrade for survival and dominance in today's algorithmic economy. The old myths of silent grinding are officially dead. I leave you with this final, critical question. Will you stay a hidden secret, just hoping for a miracle discovery? Or will you start documenting today, show your work to the world, and build your genius? The choice is entirely yours.